Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Had a Secret, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Sandime could feel a stiffness in his joints as he watched the warm rain beat against the windows of his office as he listened to its steady drumbeat on the roof. He was getting old, he even had doubts about his ability to bear the responsibilities of Hokage much longer. Just yesterday he had forgotten an important meeting with Ibiki, the head of his Anbu interrogation squad, all because he had allowed himself to become distracted staring at flowers. A Hokage should be like a Roman candle. A long, powerful ascent and then, when it reaches the peak, an unrivaled explosion. Sandime muttered softly, recalling the Nadime's words. Maybe he should select another Hokage and retire yet again, but who? The closest candidate in terms of power was Kakashi, but that man could not be Hokage. If only one of his students was still around, then he could select one. Without meaning to, he started to remember the days when he was young and teaching the famous Sanins. He was startled out of his reminiscence by a soft knocking at the office door. Come in. Old though he was, Sandime could tell by the way the person's footsteps fell that they were Anbu. They had a very unique way of moving that only a truly experienced ninja like a Kage could notice. Turning, he stared at the man, taking in the typical black uniform and armor, noting the katana strapped to his back. Although the Anbu looked familiar, the Sandime could swear he even remembered holding the man as a baby a long time ago. He racked his brain to remember the name that accompanied the face behind the bird mask. Try as he might, he could not remember, so instead the Sandime sighed, inquiring, "What is it?" "Reports." That said, the man offered the two tiny, beaten silver cylinders. Sandime untied the cylinders and took them over to the light of the window opening to examine the minute seals. One was the familiar seal of Kakashi. Breaking it open, the message inside was short and encrypted with only a basic cipher that the Sandime was able read directly. It reported that Anko's team had completed their mission successfully and would return soon. The other cylinder took him a minute to recognize before he blinked. Anko. That will be all, Sandime said without making a move to open her cylinder. The second the door was shut, he returned to his seat behind his desk and sat down, the cylinder still in hand. Setting it aside for a moment, he poured himself a cup of strong and bitter tea, then sipped, listening to the rain. What could have caused Anko to send him a report immediately, from the field, by way of Anbu? She never did that, even when there were things that warranted such action. Sighing, he broke the seals and found 4 scrolls made of very thin paper, the characters tiny, the message long and encoded in Anbu cipher reserved for the most sensitive communications. Decoding was laborious. When it was completed, he read the report and then reread it twice. Putting the report down on his desk, he allowed his eyes to drift back to the beads of water on the window pane as he let his mind range. Kotetsu. Sandime called and was immediately greeted with the bandaged Chunin. Hokage-sama. As soon as the rain stops, fetch Kakashi-san and alert the chief medic at the hospital to prepare for a Class A examination within a week. Hi. Kotetsu said, rushing out of the room, closing the door behind him. Smiling, Sandime looked down at report from Anko once more. For the first time in a long while he felt a shiver of what could almost be called youthful excitement run through his old body. I knew there was something about that boy. It was beautiful, Naruto muttered to himself as he leaned against the boulder, his fingers splayed against the yellowed grass. They were located in an area that Anko had called the High Plains, once a battlefield from the grass fire conflict. When Anko had told him the story of the place, Naruto had not cared, he had been lost in thought about the man he had K. Somehow, he just could not make himself care about anything. He had not meant to jay the man, Naruto had almost shouted that at her, but Anko's obvious pride had kept him from it. Her pride made him try to lock away his feelings about the M. But somehow, whenever he closed his eyes or allowed his mind to wander, images of his own hands, stained with someone else's B, crept into his mind. Momentarily clenching his eyes and teeth, he forcibly dispelled these visions. He was a ninja and it had been beautiful. Nodding, Naruto focused his attention back on the little girl that was playing with 2 of his clones. She seemed so happy, roughhousing with his clones and laughing. He watched, trying to take some enjoyment in the little girl's joy. Failing, Naruto shifted his gaze to Anko, who was talking with the ambassador, her body language suggesting what they were discussing was serious. Closing his eyes, he leaned his head against the boulder, concentrating on his breathing. This proved to be a bad idea since he was bombarded with memories of the samurai that had watching Naga of the bee spraying from the back of the missing nin's head. Snapping his eyes open, he found himself staring up into the curious gaze of Ryo. Naruto. Yay. Naruto managed, blinking. Smiling shyly, the little girl held up a flower for him. Foe. EW. Ha. Naruto managed, reaching up to take the flower curiously. Looking back at her, he smiled back. Nobody had ever given him a flower before. Thanks, Ryo-chan. The girl giggled, then turned and ran back off to play with the clones, one of whom picked her up and spun her around laughing. Naruto watched for a moment, then felt queasy and looked back at the flower. How could she be so happy? How could he stand to hold such a delicate little flower in the same hands that he had used to brutally take a human life? Naruto. Jerking, the blonde looked up to see Anko glaring at him. Getting up quickly, he put the flower in a pocket, rushing over to her. Arms crossed, she stared at him before speaking once more. The ambassador says our grass contacts will be arriving soon. You need to make sure to keep a very close eye on Ryo. Right, Naruto said, looking as serious as he could make himself. Strangely, now that he had something to concentrate on other than the life he had taken, the pain lessened. Maybe that was the secret to why Anko was always on the move, always toying with a kunai or other weapon. Turning, he motioned his clones, one of whom was letting Ryo ride on his back, to join him. Taking the girl and allowing the two clones to disappear in a puff, he offered a goofy smile. Piggyback ride. Yay. Ryo cheered happily as Naruto awkwardly put the girl on his shoulders. He even bore the child's playful pulling on his hair, allowing a facade of his former carefree nature to slid into place. He couldn't afford to let Anko down. So he'd play a game of pretend. And Naruto was great at pretending. Anko hated grass country. Not the politics, not the ninja, but the country. The seemingly endless sea of grass, the metallic water, the oppressive expanse of sky. Grass country was the perfect home for snakes. Orochimaru had been fond of it, reminding her often how much the right conditions were required to cultivate beautiful things. Anko sighed, thinking back to her former sensei. Orochimaru had an affinity for beautiful things, though most would consider the aesthetic he judged with rather twisted. In it, beauty and death were always intimately intertwined. Thus it was not surprising that some of the most species of snake she knew of had originated in the grass. Many of these snakes, even as hatchlings, had the power to kill a grown man with only a few ounces of venom, striking swiftly and without warning. Scowling, Anko brought her attention back to the group around her. A few hours ago they had been met by a large team of grass ninja who were to escort them to Kusa village. These ninjas seemed competent enough, although a brief exhibition of intent had been necessary, when one of the older males had leered at her, to convince them to behave themselves. She would have loved to kill the bastard then, but as this was a diplomatic mission, some restraint was required. It had bothered her a little that she could not indiscriminately kill the Kusa ninja. That was passing though. What weighed her mind at the moment was Naruto. Since performing the Kinbaku no Jutsu, she had been training herself with it so that she could better keep track of the brat. It still took some concentration to pick up the faint emotional signals, but generally it worked quite well. Arguably too well. Ever since his the blonde had been a tumult of emotions. She could feel the part of him that was repulsed and remorseful for what he had done, yet she also sensed how his heart was hardening to the reality. Unbidden, these emotions from the boy brought back memories of a young girl whose own hands were stained with B. Like Naruto, her first had been a reaction, without thought, instinct. At first she too had been remorseful, but soon, with the encouragement of her sensei, she had learned to revel in the experience. Looking over at Naruto, she wondered if the same would happen to him. A shiver ran down her spine as the similarities between her and former sensei became apparent. Damn it though, what the hell was she supposed to do? She hated Orochimaru and what he had done to her, but she could only train Naruto how she had been trained. Yet creating another monster, honoring her former sensei by passing on his ideals in addition to his techniques. Would she allow that? At least she had realized it before she tried to teach him any of the forbidden techniques that she knew. While he could, theoretically, learn them, They required totally embracing a willingness to K. Naruto could never truly embrace that aspect unless she was willing to force it, like Orochimaru had done to her, and she refused to do that. So her various techniques from her former teacher were off limits. Damn it. Crossing her arms she scowled, shifting her attention back to more important matters, namely the information she had gleaned from her interrogation of the missing nin she had spared. It had been truly enlightening. Anko could not help but smile to herself. It looked like she would not have to leave Kusa without a someone after all. Oda Hidayori. Anko remembered meeting the man once. He was some sort of judge or some mildly important official in the Grass Daimyo's court. Normally for this sort of case she would prefer to have some backup. Inevitably good moles had more power than they revealed, but she would make do. Besides, Naruto was a half-decent ninja, or at least he was on his way to it. Shifting her gaze from the distance she glanced at the blonde who was carrying Ryo, who had abandoned her palanquin in favor of his back much to her maid's distress, and talking with an older Kusa ninja. Scowling she looked at the ninja that had joined her. He was roughly Naruto's age but seemed a little different. For one thing, he was not wearing the standard straw hat or the unisex uniforms. The boy was dressed in an official kimono, but he wore a Kusa forehead protector. He seemed a bit harsher than most ninja his age. Excuse me, but is there any particular reason you're staring at me? The boy asked suddenly, not looking away from the horizon. Meh, just picturing what you'd look like bald. Anko retorted, noting how he did not flinch at the comment. So do you have a name? Utagaibukai Noga. The boy said, turning his attention to her. So you are a jonin from Konoha? Yep, one of the best they got. Anko chirped, studying him without making it obvious. And him? Noga said, casually gesturing behind him. Who? Anko said, turning to stare at the group. Then the obviousness of the question hit her and she chuckled. Naruto. Nah, he's just a genin. I see. He's strong though, got this huge dream of being Hokage that drives him. Anko said conversationally, turning back to stare at the horizon. So he wants to be Hokage. Noga muttered, turning back to study Naruto before facing forward once more. Anko frowned, to the extent that she could tell the boy was nothing dangerous in terms of chakra capacity, and from his motions and the way he held himself she guessed that he had not been a ninja for more than a year or so, and yet. He reminded her vaguely of her former sensei. What's Kusa village like? Naruto asked, glancing at the grass ninja at his side while Ryo stumbled along holding his hand. It's like any other hidden village. The nin answered blandly. That's really helpful, Naruto muttered, before sticking his tongue out at the man. Are you really going to become Hokage? The samurai on his right suddenly asked, and Naruto could not help but plaster a wide grin on his face. Yep, the greatest Hokage ever. The samurai was silent for a moment, then he raised an eyebrow. Can you really do it though? You have no clan, right? Clans are overrated, Naruto said defensively, glaring at the samurai. I'll be Hokage. Believe it. Right. Just as soon as I grow a third arm. The samurai muttered, looking away as Naruto's glare intensified. He was tired of that, tired of every bastard he told his dream to rolling their eyes or outright laughing. When he was Hokage, he was going to find this bastard and show him. He was going to show everyone. So Hokage is your goal? The grass nin asked, his tone intense. Naruto blinked, looking at him. Yay. I'm going to be Hokage. Hokage. Ryo chirped, and grinning Naruto scooped the girl up and deposited her on his shoulders. For some reason, Naruto did not mind her so much anymore, and she seemed to have grown extremely fond of him. The man, his face hidden by his bamboo hat, was silent for a moment. Is what that samurai said true? You do not have a clan. What is it with this damn clan question? Naruto responded loudly. They're not that great or anything. I agree. One's clan says little about one's intrinsic worth. Still, a powerful clan can be an invaluable asset in the political world of a hidden village. The grass nin said, reaching up to shift his bamboo hat, revealing his average-looking face. I am Akira Magbei, future Susui of Kusagakur. Naruto stared at the man curiously, taking in his odd green-yellow eyes. He had never seen those kind of eyes before, and really they were the only outstanding thing about the man's face. Then he registered what the man said and blinked. Don't you mean Kusakage? Kusa is not one of the 5. Magbei answered, frowning slightly. Someday, I hope it will be, but until then Susui is all we will need. Oh, Naruto managed, then grinned. Well, great. Yes. Magbei agreed, then tilted his head slightly. You do know it is rude to not tell me your name, since I have given you mine. He. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto could not help but smile even more. I will remember that name. Magbei said seriously, nodding. I will carve it into my memory, the name of one who will become Hokage. Naruto silent for a moment, then grinned, nodding to himself. I'll do the same for you. What about me? Ryo suddenly interjected, leaning forward, sounding put out. Naruto stuck his tongue out at her, then laughed when she mimicked him. I'm sure we'll both remember your name too. Magbei said seriously, with a hint of a smile before shifting his bamboo hat back into place. 1999, 2000, 2001. Anko stopped counting steps long enough to take in her surroundings. It was a sharply rising hill, covered with brittle yellow grass flanked on either side by even larger grass-covered hills. Looking back, she saw Naruto, then looked around at the field stretching out before her. It was a vast plain made up of thorny vines and other odd plants that Anko was quite sure were very toxic if handled improperly. It was a virtual death walk if they were guided improperly. Then she spotted the village's center. It was located on the other side of a fast-flowing river that was spanned by a wooden bridge. To the east of the village, the land was flat and somewhat higher. Most importantly, however, was that for protection besides the highly dangerous plants was the wall that stretched to enclose the entire village. It was not as imposing as the wall which surrounded Konoha, barely a quarter its height, but still it would buy some time for its defenders if Kusa were ever attacked. Naruto, get up here. Seconds later the blonde joined her, Ryo absent from his side. Anko felt her annoyance bubble at that. She had told him to always keep that girl near him. Not taking her eyes off the vast field in front of her, spoke to him, almost in a hiss. Don't touch anything. I mean it. What the hell? Naruto blinked, staring at her before he turned his gaze to the plain. By the way, Anko hissed, looking at him. I thought I told you to keep a close watch on that girl until we were in the village. The blonde glanced at her, then smiled, reaching back to scratch his head. He. Idiot. Anko hissed, glaring at him. What kind of ninja are you, huh? I suppose you left her with a samurai. Like that could keep an enemy ninja from her, they're all wounded. Naruto squinted at her, then stuck his tongue out. At least I'm not dressed like a damn hooker. What did you say? Anko grated out, eyes narrowing as a wave intent started to radiate off her. I didn't stutter. Naruto said evenly. Okay, runt, you get your move while I escort Ryo. Anko said sweetly, shoving her hands into her coat pockets. She would teach the little brat to backtalk her. Watching him scowling as he walked forward, Anko grinned and cupped a hand around her mouth. Hey, watch out for the man-eating fly traps. What? Naruto shouted, turning to look at her, eyes wide in fear. Seeing Anko's continued glare and smile, he turned and continued on his way, mumbling. Anko watched him closely, noting that Noga was following his lead. Scowling, she motioned for everyone else to go ahead, taking Ryo's hand the instant she was close enough. Naruto was, even if no one would admit it, on average a good judge of character. He was not sure why or how he had developed this ability, but he could almost feel instinctively what a person was really like. It was basically, besides his sheer stubbornness, the only reason he had managed to survive long enough to reach Genin. Thus, the strange boy walking beside him through this odd valley of plants puzzled him. Naruto could feel a sense of unease in his stomach, a vague feeling of badness, yet the boy had yet to say a word outside of introducing himself. So Naruto did the only thing he could think of, put the boy as far out of his mind as he possibly could. It was a red, almost orange, colored flower that caught his attention. It was large, reaching his knee, and he wondered if maybe Sakura would like it. He even reached out to pluck said flower when a firm hand grasped his wrist, stopping him short. Blinking in surprise, he looked up at Noga, who was staring at him with intent yellow-green eyes. I wouldn't do that, the boy said after a moment as Naruto yanked his arm free and stood upright once more. Why not? It's just a flower. Sakura-chan would love it. Naruto said, glancing at the flower once more. How could she not love it? That color was almost perfect for her. That plant is called a chihana, literally bee flower, Noga said blandly. I highly doubt that any girl would appreciate a flower that spits AF dissolving venom. Right, Naruto said, taking a half step away from the plant, noting it intently before glancing back at the boy who was walking once more. Grumbling, the blonde started walking as well, knowing that the polite thing would be to thank the boy, but he just did not have that in him. After several minutes, Noga spoke up once more, his tone bland as ever. Quote, Do you really intend to become Hokage? Yep, Naruto answered enthusiastically. He was always willing to discuss his goal. The greatest Hokage ever. Why? Noga asked, glancing to the left at a variety of plants. To make everyone acknowledge me. Naruto said seriously. I see. Noga said lightly, before pointing at a group of vines with a delicious-looking red fruit creeping close to the path. Those small vines with the fruit are called hibernia vines. They induce forgetfulness and a very slow death. Naruto was silent for a moment, then looked at him. You're smart. Kusa ninja are experts in poisons and plants. Noga said casually, glancing at him. Unlike you soft Konoha ninja, we grow up with our lives depending on our knowledge. Oh, Naruto said before bristling slightly. Oi, soft, who the hell do you think you are? I am a genin of Kusa, second eldest son of the grass daimyo and stronger than you. Noga said disdainfully, glaring at Naruto. To be Hokage so that people will acknowledge you. That is a pointless goal. Those that are weaker than you are little more than feeble sheep. Why would anyone wish for their acknowledgement? Fear should be your goal, they should fear you. That is the only acknowledgement worth anything. Oi! Naruto shouted, grabbing the boy's arm and yanking him around violently. Take that back. Do not touch me. Noga said, his eyes narrowed as he wrenched his arm free. Anyone that wishes to be a cage is not much better than a rabid dog. The cage system is a sickness, a plague of the human race. To do real good, you must overturn that archaic system and create a new role. You have to conquer people's fear and use it to control them. You! Naruto shouted before lashing out blindly. The result was a satisfying crunch as his knuckles clashed against the daimyo's son's cheek, knocking him off his feet. Naruto stood there for a moment, then snorting in disgust turned and stormed on ahead, leaving the boy behind. Sitting up, Noga touched his bruised cheek as he spit out B, then narrowing his eyes climbed to his feet, staring intently after the blonde. Anko could feel her patience wearing thin as the Kusa gate guards argued with Magbei about some inane little procedural detail. It was all she could do to keep from them and letting herself through the gate. Even Naruto, who was now back to carrying Ryo, was looking highly agitated, which was not such a surprise really. Finally, just before Anko snapped, the gate swung open and Magbei led the group inside the walls of Kusa village. Well, not really a village, it was odd, or at least a village in the sense that she was used to. The buildings all seemed to be built up of plants grown from the ground, leaving her a feeling that she was walking in some sort of bizarre forest. It was definitely strange and she did not like it. She knew enough about grass nins to know they were strongest when surrounded by nature, and this village was nothing but nature. Suddenly, Magbei stopped walking and turned, facing them. Welcome to Kusa village. That said, he motioned with his hand toward a group of samurai, even as the escorting ninja peeled away. We have prepared proper lodgings for your group, and the Susui has made his private bathhouse available to you. On behalf of everyone, thank you. Tashi said politely, inclining his head ever so slightly. As for our wounded. Ah yes, well don't worry, I'm sure the Susui will make sure they are well cared for. Magbei said with a genial smile. Anko, however, could feel eyes on her and she tensed, readying for an ambush. Magbei seemed to see it and quickly explained, his tone soothing. Please forgive the villagers. They are not used to strangers. Mayor. Anko aloud then focused her attention on Naruto, who was standing next to her. Oi, give Ryo to one of the samurai. Naruto hesitated, obviously remembering what she had said to him earlier, but he did as ordered, and then without so much as a polite word or bow, Anko started walking in a random direction, motioning for him to follow her, which he did. There were several reasons she had separated them from the group, but primarily she was a woman of her word and she had promised Naruto ramen. The shop they found was small, crammed between larger buildings, and oddly enough it seemed to have built out of something other than a natural material. It almost looked like rusted metal that had been fused together. Not that it mattered, given Naruto's infatuation with ramen. Anko figured anything would be fine. A thin, balding man behind the counter beamed at the two of them as they entered the shop. As soon as he was sure they were not about to leave, he gave them a customary greeting, "Welcome to Lower No Ramen," which Anko waved off, glancing at Naruto curiously. "Are you sure this is okay?" Naruto asked as he took his seat beside Anko, who was already ordering dango, ramen and sake. "We won't be needed just yet," Anko muttered, glancing at him. "You noticed that the others were getting cleaned up, right?" "Yay," Naruto said, scowling slightly. "Shouldn't we be doing that?" "No," Anko said flatly, grabbing her sake as soon as it was put in front of her. "Haven't you noticed that all the grass ninja are extra clean? They've got the daimyo here, we're Konoha ninja, the only one we clean up for is our daimyo. Besides, the ninja will notice the bee on our clothes, that's a good intimidation factor." "Oh," Naruto said, his attention diverting to his ramen which he quickly attacked, much to the amusement of Anko who selected one of her sticks of dango. A moment of silence passed over them, silence in which Anko began to wonder just how much ramen the boy could pack away. He was already on his 8th bowl. "So, how'd I do? Huh?" Naruto suddenly asked, his tone excited and staring at her expectantly. Anko hesitated, unsure of what to say. Scowling for a moment she thought about it then nodded. "Better than my first teammates." "Really?" Naruto said happily, turning back to his ramen. "Yay. You're still alive." Anko scowled, turning back to her dango and sake. "That's a vast difference between you and them." Coughing, Naruto hit his C before staring at her. Grinning, Anko glanced at him, her eyes almost gleaming. "Something wrong?" "No," Naruto shouted, before returning to his meal reluctantly. Grinning, Anko took a vicious bite out of her dango, shifting to a different subject. "So, why'd you hit Noga?" He insulted the Hokage and said that the only way to real power was to control people through fear. Naruto growled, snapping a chopstick. Cursing, he tossed the broken stick aside and selected a new set. "I see," Anko muttered, eyebrows drawing together. So Noga and her former sensei thought the same way about power, that was interesting. Thank Kami, Noga did not have any real strength or power as a ninja, he was just some minor grass genin, otherwise it would be Orochimaru all over again. In Anko's opinion, one was enough. "Hey, Anko," Naruto suddenly asked, staring at his empty ramen bowl. What was your first mission like?" Naruto asked curiously, looking at her. "None of your business," Anko answered sharply, focusing on her dango. She did not want to talk about that atrocity. "Please," Naruto pleaded, and Anko sighed, setting her dango down before glaring at him. "My first mission was nothing like yours," Anko said firmly, narrowing her eyes. Naruto started, then stopped, scowling slightly. "I don't know anything about you," Anko snorted, grabbing her dango and taking an extra vicious bite out of it. Anko knew what he wanted something to judge his own actions against. Anko had wanted the same damn thing from Orochimaru. Still, did not mean it was a good idea to tell him about her fist mission. If only she had known then what she now knew about her former sensei. Sighing, Anko began talking without thinking. Nanking was not a pleasant mission. The mission started simple enough, but things got out of control quickly. It was during the war with the stone, back toward the beginning, before Oro-sensei left on his quest. Was it? Naruto hesitated, then stared at her. "Did you kill anyone?" "Yay," Anko drawled, glaring darkly at her sake. "This tastes like water." Setting it down hard, she glanced at him. Nanking was a piss ant village on the Earth country's border, but they were using it to launch attacks against waterfall. So my team was ordered to solve the problem. "Wow," Naruto breathed, staring at her, his awe was hard to miss. Anko bristled, turning to lock eyes with him, her angry boiling up. "Don't you say? Well, it was a pointless mission that should have never happened the way it did." Naruto frowned slightly but wisely kept his mouth shut as Anko forced herself to calm back down. "Or, what the hell am I getting worked up about? Look, this was your first K and things will get easier. Just don't dwell on it, okay?" "Yay, but," Naruto hesitated, face softening, as his hand reached for his C. "I feel like something's wrong with me. The more I think about it, the less I feel, the more detached." Anko scowled for a moment, then reached out and picked up her cup of sake and handed it to him. "Just means you're taking a step toward being a real ninja. When Naruto just stared at the drink, she chuckled. Hurry up, Runt, we've gotta go make sure the ambassador isn't M or something. Standing, she watched as Naruto first sniffed the drink and then took a tentative sip. His face contorted and he spewed the vile liquid across the counter. Anko could not help but laugh, both at the foul look on Naruto's face and the even fouler look on the ramen chef's. They were quickly met by samurai clad in green and black and who led through the moderately busy streets toward the center of the village. As the grass samurai led them deeper into the building, and Naruto quickly became lost, he would never find his way out without some form of help. They climbed winding, defensible stairs, and went along additional corridors and up more stairs. Shafts of sunlight from the wall embrasures cast intricate patterns across the floor as Naruto stole glances out the windows, when he could, to judge how high they had climbed. Then suddenly the corridor they were in turned a sharp corner sharply and ended 50 paces away. They were greeted by masked samurai, each in green and black uniforms protecting a door. Each with right hand on the sword hilt, left on the scabbard, motionless and ready. Their focus never wavered from the group and it was quickly explained by the officer, a middle-aged man, that, while the fire samurai could remain armed, both ninja would have to surrender their weapons. Anko? Naruto asked curiously, staring at the dark-haired woman. Go ahead. Then she gave them a look that clearly said, give them the obvious weapons. Naruto picked up the cue and he quickly produced his weapons pouch and kunai leg holster. Disarmed for the most part, the officer motioned to the rest of his men who moved aside, allowing the captain to open the thick door before turning to bow him through. The first thing that struck Naruto was the fact that for all the pomp the room was not very large or impressive. The kneeling mats were even faded and they had chosen to go with the odd color scheme of green and black. Geez, what was up with this obsession? Overall, in Naruto's opinion, the place was sorely lacking in atmosphere. Now maybe if they had some orange and pink here and there. Naruto blinked, noticing that he was the only one still standing in the doorway, and quickly hurried to catch up to the group where they were all now standing before a dais near the center of the room. Not even Naruto, distracted as he was by his musing about pink and orange furniture, could not miss the 5 samurai kneeling in a circle around the dais, nor the 10 kneeling on each side of the room, all silently focused on the man sitting on atop the dais silently. Several minutes passed where no one acknowledged the group, much to Naruto's mounting annoyance. Geez, could they sit down already or at least start talking? Ugh. Fine, if everyone else wanted to play quiet mouse still mouse, then he was going to ask the damn question. Oi, can we sit down already? Naruto demanded belligerently, arms crossed. All eyes within his group flashed to Naruto while the seated man, dressed in surprisingly simple but clean robes, turned his gaze upon him. The seated man's gaze was steady and Naruto felt an almost overwhelming power reach out, rooting him in his place. Geez, this was just freaky. Then the man shifted his gaze to the ambassador, offering a faint smile. Please, have a seat. Letting out a breath he did not realize he had been holding, Naruto sat down, propping a hand on his knee and glaring around him. Daimyo Utagaibukai, Tashi said cordially. Ambassador, Utagaibukai replied politely. I have heard that you had a minor problem on the trip to Kusa. Yes. Unfortunately, a band of missing nins ambushed us. Tashi answered gravely before relaxing. Thankfully, our Konoha ninja and Fire Country samurai escort was more than enough to handle the problem. Thankfully, Utagaibuki agreed, then shifted his gaze to the red-headed girl held in the arms of a red-clad samurai. This is Kasigi Ryo. Yes. The papers will be summoned shortly, security has been extra tight. Tashi nodded, then glanced at something to the left of the daimyo. I thought that the Susui would be present for this. Oh, did you not know? Sadly, the last Kusa Susui is due to ill health a week ago. Thankfully, Kusa managed to select a new Susui and he hurried to lead a group of his fellow ninja to meet you as scheduled. Silence. Naruto scowled, wondering who in the hell they would have selected as their new leader. He prayed it was not Noga, that little prick didn't deserve to run a ninja village. Sadly, he could not figure out who it would be, yet he felt like he was forgetting something, or someone. Ugh, who the hell was it? I am sorry to hear that, if our daimyo had known, or the Hokage. Tashi offered weakly, only to be waved off by the grass daimyo. It is of no real consequence. Pausing, the older man turned as one of the doors at the back of the room opened and a tall young man with a plain face and yellow-green eyes entered the room. He stopped, scanned the group, then smiled faintly, locking his gaze on Naruto. Coming to the front, he bowed in greeting to the ambassador, and Ryo then moved to join the daimyo on the dais. As he passed, Naruto heard him whisper, "I told you I'd be Susui." "No way," Naruto shouted, watching as Magbei sat on a mat just below the grass daimyo on the dais. "I see you to know each other," the daimyo said genially, addressing Naruto. "I trust you also met my son Noga. He is quite anxious to participate in the Chunin exams." "Him?" Naruto blurted, eyes wide, and the daimyo allowed an odd smile to flitter across his face. "Yes, he is the most suited for the task." The daimyo glanced out of a high, narrow window, then looked back at the ambassador. "If you do not mind, I would like to wait for Hitori before we attend to this important matter." "Of course, we wouldn't dream of doing this without the esteemed regent of Kusa." "Oh, you've already heard of his promotion?" the daimyo asked blandly, but even Naruto could see the way his eyes narrowed as if in surprise. "He was only just announced as the regent a few days ago." "I overheard it when we arrived, my lord," Tashi said. His voice, however, betrayed a certain smugness that had Naruto smirking in satisfaction. Magbei smiled at the nurse politely as she led him into the small examination room. The girl returned the smile shyly, then departed, leaving the Susui alone. Glancing at the mostly white room, he cracked his N, then walked over to the examination table and hopped on, staring at the door expectantly. Seconds later, the door opened and a young woman, with short black hair and an outfit that hugged her figure perfectly, entered the room. "Susui-sama. Ah, Sei-chan, you can still call me Magbei," the young man complained, smiling as charmingly as he could at her. "I am the chief doctor on duty," Sei said airily, even as she closed the door and walked over to the counter. "Proper protocol must be observed." "Oh, give me a break," Magbei muttered, following her with his eyes before glancing at the counter where she was working a minor summoning to produce his medical file. "Sei-chan, we've skinny dipped together for Kami's sake. I think protocol can be set aside between us. Right, just as soon as there is a ring on this finger," the woman in question said, holding her left hand up and wiggling the ring finger. "Until then you are the Susui of Kusa." "Geez," Magbei sighed, looking away. "Now what exactly brings you by? Did you get injured on this escort trip?" "Nah, nothing like that." Magbei paused, then lowered his voice. Sei-chan, you think you could make sure that you are my primary physician? I really don't trust anyone else with my body." Sei glanced at him, a teasing smile on her lips. "Oh, don't worry, I have already taken care of that. Besides, I have plans for that body." Becoming serious again, she crossed her arms, turning to rest against the counter. "So what brings you by if you are not hurt?" "We've signed the new non-aggression treaty with Fire Country," Magbei said, his tone equally serious. "The daimyo, however, does not plan on honoring it. He's got an insane plan, but that's not really why I'm here. Though if a ninja shows up with a girl named Ryo, I want you to run as far as you can with her." Sei blinked, then nodded. "Of course. Now why are you here?" "Well, it's nothing too serious, I'm just curious for your opinions on someone," Magbei answered, and then, seeing her attention, laid out everything he had observed and heard about Naruto. It took a full 20 minutes to cover all the details, including going back to clarify some things when Sei asked him to. Finally he reached the end and sighed, leaning back on his hands. "So what did you think? Without a sample of his B and a very secure location to test it, I cannot really be sure," Sei answered, chewing her bottom lip. "But if, within a span of 24 hours, his shoulder healed completely and he was acting as if nothing was ever wrong, I would say there is a strong possibility he has an advanced bloodline. He does not have a clan though." "Well, there are lost clans," Sei said slowly, almost scowling, "clans who were exterminated for one reason or another. During the ninja wars there were a large number of clans that were targeted, whole families wiped out by the warring factions. Also, in some parts of the world, clans with bloodlines are greatly feared by the common people and thus their members tend to fall prey to mob violence. He could have come from one of them." "Maybe," Magbei allowed, then shook his head, wishing he could have a more concrete answer. "Magbei-kun, I know why you're so interested in him," Sei suddenly said, her reddish eyes softening. "He does sound an awful lot like you when we were growing up, an orphan who was rejected, but do you really think it's a good idea to care so much about him? If we are going to act against Konoha, he will probably be involved in the fighting." He's going to be Hokage though, Magbei said, smiling faintly. He could not explain in words how he could believe those words so completely. Yet the instant he had heard the child declare that his dream was to be Hokage, Magbei had known the boy was not just another Konoha ninja. You actually believe that? Sei asked seriously, leaning forward slightly to stare at him intently. She always did this when they were talking about such important matters. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto is going to be somebody important. Magbei grinned slightly, sitting upright. I just feel it, that's why I'm giving him my family scroll. What? Sei shouted, staring at him in shock. Are you a complete barker? Giving him that scroll? Do you realize what you would be giving him? Easy, Sei-chan. Don't you, Sei-chan, me. The young woman fumed, glaring at him. You honestly want to give your family's scroll to this Konoha ninja that thinks he will grow up to be Hokage? Well, yay. Magbei admitted shyly. But let me explain why. It had better be a damn good explanation, Akira Magbei. It is, the Susui said hastily, then nodded. I'll admit, I have not known Naruto very long, but he is enough like me that I feel compelled to help him. Plus, the scroll is not so special. When I was a kid I just found some obscure kusajutsus and wrote them down. But you said it was all you had left of your family. Sei retorted incredulously. I lied, Magbei said, then grinned. Besides, I can always make another family scroll. Magbei, that is not the point. You will be helping a Konoha ninja. They have nearly ruined our country. It would be a betrayal of all of our ancestors. Sei-chan, Magbei said, then narrowed his eyes. Konoha ninja are not our enemies, and when he becomes Hokage I would rather that he count us as friends. Besides, I have more important things to worry about, like what our illustrious daimyo is planning. Magbei-kun, you are gambling our safety on a boy. Naruto is going to be in a position to control the most dominant military force on this continent someday, and I would prefer to have him remember me as someone that helped him out. Quote. You just don't get it, do you? Sei said hopelessly, staring at him. Magbei slid off the examination table, meeting her gaze evenly. Arai-san, you are the one that does not get it. I am not interested in a war that happened 50 or 100 years ago, or the agenda of petty politicians. All I am interested in is protecting my village, and maybe someday trading Susui for Kusakage. That said, he tried to give her a quick K on the lips, but Sei turned her head, not relaxing her posture one bit. Sighing, the young man shook his head and turned, leaving the room behind. His shoulders were tense and he looked more serious than ever in the entire time he had lived in the village. Inside his pocket he felt a small box press against his hand. Clutching it, he sighed and shook his head. Someday he would ask, why are we sleeping outside again? Naruto asked as laid out his sleeping roll across from the log that Anko was sitting on. It's safer, Anko answered curtly, scowling. We messed up someone's plans on our way here, and sleeping in the inn near the others would only put them at greater risk. Why us? I thought they were after Ryo. Shouldn't we be protecting her? Naruto grumbled, obviously annoyed. Barker, Ryo has been delivered. Her safety is Kusa's job now. No, we will be targeted because we interfered with their job. It's an honor thing. But how is it safer out here? Naruto continued to grumble, flopping on his bedding to stare up at the sky. Well, you hear all those insects? Anko retorted, closing her eyes, preparing herself for the attempt she knew was coming. Yay. Well, they'll go quiet when someone starts approaching. They're used to us, so they don't care what we do as long as we stay relatively quiet, but outsiders will startle them. Anko explained, slipping a kunai out of her forearm holster. Not even Anbu can keep insects from noticing them. As a matter of fact, I can count only 2 people that could move with such stealth that even nature would not notice them. Who? Jiraiya-sama and the Yondaime. Anko answered softly, concentrating. Which shouldn't be a surprise since Jiraiya trained the Yondaime. Whoa, Naruto said, sitting up in his bed. So even your sensei could not move that quietly. He had other tricks, but he was pretty damn close to it. Anko retorted, glancing to her right. Did you know, Naruto, that according the ancestor myths there is a land that is perpetually covered in ice and snow? Not like snow country, either, but so cold that the ice never melts. Where humans are animals with fur and live in caves made of ice. Huh. Naruto scratched the back of his head curiously. Ancestors. You've never heard of them? Anko asked, surprise filling her tone. I thought everyone knew of them. Well of course I know of them. Naruto said, obviously lying. Quote. The ancestors were an ancient people, they were almost gods. Anko said, snorting. They could travel to the stars and the depths of the ocean. They were powerful and ruled the whole planet. It's said they had weapons that were more powerful than any jutsu. Quote. No way. Naruto breathed and Anko grinned faintly, remembering the first time that Jiraiya and Orochimaru had told her the story. The ancestors could store whole libraries of knowledge so that they took up no more than a stack of scrolls and heal almost any disease, create life from nothing. Anko continued, still toying with her kunai. The gods grew jealous and angry, but they also feared the ancestors. Why? Naruto asked, leaning forward anxiously. Because the ancestors were on the cusp of something that only the gods themselves possessed. Anko said, slowly meeting his gaze. Immortality, it was within the grasp, and they asked of creation, who can compare to our greatness? The gods could not allow it, they struck down the ancestors. The gods struck with cataclysmic earthquakes, floods, and when those had failed to cripple the ancestors, the gods opened the gates of hell on them. Wah? Naruto asked, eyes wide. The gods sent oni of all sorts, twisted and malformed spirits, and even the fearsome-tailed demons, like the Kyuubi, to destroy them. Anko explained calmly. Many of the demons were destroyed in their war with the ancestors, but ultimately the ancestors and their civilization was destroyed. Yet the gods were unable to destroy all of the ancestors' knowledge or the descendants of the ancestors. Descendants? Naruto asked with a frown in his tone before blinking. You mean the children? You really didn't think that such a powerful race could have been destroyed completely? Of course some survived, and those few are why and how we use jutsus. Why didn't Iruka-sensei tell us this stuff in the academy? Naruto exclaimed. This is why more interesting than most everything else he taught us. It's not a well-known piece information. Anko said, staring at him. I only know because two of the Sanins shared an interest in them. Do you really think they existed? Naruto asked after a moment, laying back on his bed, and Anko shook her head. Doesn't matter, they're gone now. Staring at his stretched out form, she sighed. Get some sleep, brat, you've got second watch. She listened closely until she heard his soft snores, and then she relaxed slightly. If there was going to be an attack, she preferred it happen while he was sleeping. Who would it be? One of the ninja that had escorted them, or a samurai? It was too bad that Hidayori himself was in the capital, or she'd have gutted him well before now. Well, until then she would just wait. Closing her eyes, she allowed herself a few moments of peace. Anko jerked into alertness and threw herself into a forward shoulder roll as a hail of weapons crashed into the log she had been dozing on. Reaching Naruto's side, she grabbed his shoulder, yanking him out of his sleeping roll just as another series of objects rained down. Ha! Wah! Naruto managed, trying desperately to wake up while Anko literally dragged him to the only place they would have cover at. Anko, what's gone on? He managed to ask, the entire time yawning. Scowling, she shoved him against the fallen tree, eyes darting everywhere. We're being attacked, you idiot. Now stay quiet. That hissed. She strained to hear where the next attack would come from, but instead heard the rapid rustling of leaves, signaling that a ninja was attempting to escape. Like hell you're getting away. Anko hissed before leaping into the trees and gave chase to the noise. Branches, trees and bush whipped past, her eyes focused entirely on the movement ahead. She was closing the distance. Timing her leap with his, she produced a kunai and let it fly in a smooth E, which rewarded her with a scream from in front. Smiling in mild satisfaction, Anko sped onwards, bursting into a clear to find the ninja waiting, a dark spot spreading at his waist. The ninja started to form hand seals the second she appeared, but Anko see him short by throwing another kunai, his shoulder to render one arm useless. The man grabbed his shoulder for a moment before reaching for his kunai holster with his good arm. In that moment Anko moved, flipping out of the tree. She landed and darted in a slightly zigzag pattern before striking. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as he swept his dagger at her, desperately trying to buy himself room, but Anko ducked it and slipping an arm around his, as she drove a kunai deep into his other shoulder. She followed this up with a palm heel to his chin and a kick to the knee, toppling him. The instant he collapsed onto his back, she drove a knee into his solar plexus, another kunai coming out to press against his T. Seconds later she heard the crashing noise of a hurrying Naruto. She looked up just as he burst into the clearing in a run. Damn it! Naruto shouted, skidding to a halt, his breathing ragged. Did he get our? The boy suddenly trailed off and Anko narrowed her eyes. Anko, are you going to? Naruto gulped, keeping a careful distance from her. Anko could feel a hint of imbalance in his emotions. This was why she had waited for him to catch up. Turning back, she stared into the horrified ninja's face, her tone cold. Death is our art. We make it every day with our hands. And part of us becomes desperate to know, what's it like? Suddenly her hand made a motion, spraying B into her face. She remained seated through the man's death throes and did not move or speak until he was finished. Nodding, she stood, kunai held loosely in her hand as she turned to stare at Naruto under the moonlight. Ninja are death personified. Even Hokages, and you better accept that. Naruto stared at her, then looked away. When I'm fighting, the woman said conversationally while wiping the B blade on the back of her hand. It's like the whole world goes away. Everything boils down to I'm gonna win, and they're gonna lose. B, but you K him, even after he was helpless. Naruto said, eyes wide, staring at her once more. Yea, and he would have K as if I had been soft-hearted. Anko said blandly, looking up at Naruto sharply. I didn't choose to be like this. I would have loved to be like Kurenai. I would have loved to grow up dating and thinking about nail polish. Slipping her kunai back into her holster, her face grew hard. I was baptized in B, like you. My sensei made sure I could be the best K ever, so excuse me Naruto if when faced with a man that would happily K me, I happily K him instead. There was a moment of silence following her tirade, and then Naruto stared at her intently. So, am I going to be like you? No, Anko said after a moment, starting back for the camp. You're going to curse every life you take, but you'll accept it as part of the job. Huh. Anko turned back to stare at him, eyes sad even though he could not tell in the darkness. That'll be the difference, Naruto. You'll keep your humanity. She stopped when she heard the hurried steps behind her and then almost cursed when she felt him wrap his arms around her. For a moment she wondered what the hell he was doing, and then it registered. Despite his clumsiness, he was trying to hug her. She waited several moments and then spoke up, her tone edged with a threat. Stop being a damn moron and get back to camp. It's your turn to keep watch. When Naruto released her and walked ahead silently, she wondered, why? The air was dry, yet cool, with just enough clouds peppering the sky that there was hope for rain. The upside was that it would be greatly appreciated. The downside was that the clouds blocked much of the light from the brightening sky. This meant it was not dark out, which in turn meant Naruto was not wasting his training time. True, for any accuracy he had to almost squint, but he could make out the vague target he had designed, Sasuke's face pinned to a tree, and sent his kunai hurtling. It struck a few inches off center. Grumbling, he produced a brace of shuriken for each hand and launched them. Sadly, only one or two even hit the tree, the others scattered into the darkened makeshift training area. Damn it! Naruto shouted, sitting down heavily and glaring at the tree. Why did he suck at using weapons? He was picking up the taijutsu fast enough. He could even use both jutsus that his sensei had taught him moderately well, so why was it that he could not use weapons even half as good as anyone from the academy? He had no talent with the damn things, but he could not just give up. He needed to learn. To be Hokage meant a lot of practice. Now it was darkened. As much as he hated to admit it, he could not really see in the dark. Plus his body was starting to protest the lack of sleep, yet he remained where he was, knowing that if he stopped practice he would start thinking. If he was not clowning or practicing or working, he would start seeing the man's face that he had K, and he would feel queasy. Naruto was not AK, and yet he had felt a momentary thrill. That scared him. Shaking it all off, he quietly climbed to his feet and walked forward, gathering his weapons before glancing at his slumbering teacher. She had not approved of his hug, but she had sounded like a lot of the kids he remembered, and that was what everyone did to make other people happy. He did not understand. Maybe he had hugged her the wrong way. Sighing, he sat down heavily once more and crossed his arms, utterly confused, which meant his mind started to roam. Scowling, he started telling himself joke after joke, determined to keep it all locked away and to do as Anko had said. He was going to accept it. He was. And he wasn't crying, he had just pulled a muscle. Leaning against the wall beside the only gate leading into Kusa, Anko kept glancing curiously at the gathered Kusa ninja. They were not clumped together, yet it was obvious they were more than passively curious. To make matters worse, none of them were from the group that escorted them into the village yesterday. That Barker, if we have to wait one more minute, Anko muttered, beginning to twirl a kunai on her finger. Narrowing her eyes, she considered the village and everything that had happened there. Her early morning report would reach the Hokage about noon. Sighing, she closed her eyes for a moment before catching her kunai so that she could cross her arms and prop her foot up against the wall. His loud, energetic voice chattering happily reached her first, and then she saw the blonde, walking toward them talking animatedly with the Susui and Ryo in his orange jacket holding his hand. Quote, ... I didn't think that actually came off. Anko muttered, staring at the jacket, which practically swallowed the girl. Snorting, she glanced back at Naruto, this time paying attention to what he was wearing. It took her a moment to register, but finally the black shirt and orange pants combo hit her. Don't worry, I will personally be watching over her, the Susui said, smiling as he ruffled Ryo's hair. Anko rolled her eyes. She was impatient and wasn't going to hide it. She wanted to be back in Fire Country borders where she could get another mission. Naruto. Ryo. Naruto. Anko reached up and rubbed the bridge of her nose, turning away from those two hugging and acting so damn stupid. She felt the shift in weight and opened her eyes to see the ambassador and his samurai all grinning. Gods, why couldn't they just get moving so this would all be over with? Seeing a stray viper, she hurled her kunai, severing its head. Good. Nasty things, vipers. We don't have all day. Anko interjected suddenly, letting her annoyance be through. Bah! Came Naruto's response, but he quickly joined the team near the gate. So what kept you? Anko asked, frowning at him. Seeing the way his smile widened, she glowered darkly. Well, we've been waiting for you all this time and now you're not even going to offer an explanation. Yup, Naruto said, turning to wave at a crying Ryo, his own eyes watering up. Come on, moron. Anko almost growled, reaching out to grab the back of his shirt and drag him behind her as the group started walking, with a Kusa ninja in the lead and one of the daimyo's son under fire samurai guard. Anko sighed. So are you going to tell me or not? Naruto, smiling, pulled free, then put his hands behind his head. It's Nonya. Nonya. Anko repeated, blankly staring at him. He nodded, trying and failing to look serious. Nonya business. Quote, ... You do remember we're practicing taijutsu when we get back. Naruto paled. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.